I think he's here.
Yay.
Phil, how's it going, sir? Can you hear us?
So I'm not sure if you can hear me,
We
We
can
can hear
hear
you.
you.
but I can't hear you guys. So
Mm.
I'm just having a grand old time today.
That is the world of live. That's what we do.
Don't you love technology?
Yeah, definitely love it. And so, if you all are on LinkedIn right now, you can go to my page, which that's where the live is, and I'll be like a swivel head going back and forth. But thank you all once again. We are here for a C3 conscious leadership session, and I am so excited about our topic today. But I am Lawrence Henderson. I'm a leadership coach, trainer, facilitator. I call myself the adjunct of development because I go in and I get out. But I am so glad that I have been able to have the gift and pleasure to be connected to Karen because she, like myself, we love authentic relationships and connection. And in the midst of the pandemic is when we connected. And so those of you who believe real connection can't happen in the midst of something like this, but in the midst of social justice issues, but all these things, we need more community more than ever. And so I am so grateful to Karen. And so I just want to hand over the torch and the mantle to Karen. So tell us a little bit about C3 and then get us rolling on today's topic.
All right, Lawrence, thank you. You're a gift to me as well, and I'm so glad that we got these things started. So, welcome to Answer the Call to Conscious Leadership, hosted through the C3 Corporate Consciousness Co-op group on LinkedIn. This group is really all about because Gabriella, who's our guest today, is one of our panelists, as well as Phil Williams, schooled me a little bit on the word collaboration yesterday, and I'm going to start replacing the word collaboration with co-creation based on
Good.
that education. And so, what we're here to co-create is really a better corporate landscape to make work better for more people, to make what companies accomplish be something that makes the world a better place for us, for our kids' kids. And the conversation that we're having today is birthed out of our previous event, which Phil attended. And he dropped some really great questions, some great comments, which I hope that many of you will be able to do during this conversation. And that's really what it is. It's a conversation. It's the group is about elevating knowledge. It's about exposing secret sauces that are helping other people improve and develop to expand and accelerate growth all around. So if you have a secret sauce, please come into our group and tell us all about it. We don't want it to be a secret anymore. We want everybody to be able to benefit from it. We're about co-creation versus competition, and so everybody here is on the same page with that. And I'm so glad when I see Paige, I'm like looking at my computer. And I can see Gabrielle Herrero and I can see Phil Williams. Phil Williams was the one who mentioned conversational intelligence as something that, he was like the end of our last event, and I was like, that looks like something that we need to dedicate a whole topic on. And you, our C3 community, have voted that you also wanted to know more about this topic. And so I sought out Gabriella. She's certified in conversational intelligence, and I can't wait to hear more about her expertise. And Phil, you brought it up. I know that you must know a great deal about it and have been, hopefully, I'd love to hear about the successes that both of you have had in bringing this into the corporate environment, and what is possible when you bring this and all the tools that go around it into a corporate environment. So let's talk about, Phil, what I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself too, because I'm still getting to know you as well.
Okay. Can you? Yes. Good. I'm so Williams, and I have been, I would say, coaching other leaders, and more specifically, the 23 years that I was with Merrill Lynch, and now being an HR business partner for a nonprofit organization that doesn't oftentimes get the, how can I say, that they don't necessarily get, they're not necessarily afforded the opportunity to have someone coach them. So, my 23 years with Merrill Lynch and coaching leaders, it was really all about them, I think, you know, me building them up and allowing them to really understand what they were capable of. And when it comes to conversational intelligence, it's really something that all of us have. And it just is a matter of understanding and knowing it. And so what I've been able to do is to take my work experience and take my academic understanding and have them to balance each other out and to marry each other and to just bring all of the leadership experience that I've had. And also, I think being afforded the opportunity to do an assessment center for Merrill Lynch for all of their domestic branch office leaders. And so it's just afforded me this experience, and now I'm able to marry all of that together and to coach other leaders to be successful, because that's really important for me. And that's my passion, is for them to be successful. My t-shirt says HR is committed. Definitely. I am committed to making everybody as successful as possible. And Gabriella, I hope I haven't put you on the spot by saying something that Lawrence picked up on. And so now here we are. So that's who I am.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for raising the awareness about conversational intelligence, which spurred me to seek out Gabriella. So Gabriella, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Sure. I've lived in different countries, and my passion since I was very, very young was traveling, cultures, different people, and language. I love languages, and since I was very young, I started learning languages. And then I was very lucky to travel and lived in different countries. And because of something that happened to me, I had cancer 13 years ago. I changed my life and became a coach. And I had to look for a niche, and that niche was obviously intercultural coaching. And I started the typical way: sensitivity training, stereotypes. I have been stereotyped my whole life. When I say that I was born in Mexico, people see me with a darker skin. When I say my parents are Spaniards, they see me as a white girl, or I don't belong here, and all those things. But even with all the training and everything, people still had deeper things. And I was trying to find out a way to change that. So I found conversational intelligence, and I'm passionate about it. I love it. It's about having conversations. So the quote that describes this the most, and that it's more powerful to me, is that to get to the next level of greatness depends in the quality of the culture, which depends on the quality of the relationships, which depend on the quality of the conversations. Why? Everything happens through conversations. So what I've done now is I change, everything is based on trust. What Judith Glaser, the late Judith Glaser, developed was a system that it's based on trust. And that's how we communicate. The ways we communicate, we all have brains, we all function exactly the same. So the neuroscience behind the conversation, it's what makes it, the magic happen with all kinds of human beings, no matter if everything is lost in translation, that's when we get there. So I've been working, my most important clients right now are Asians. So I have this beautiful bank that is Japanese, and I have the culture in Mexico and New York, and helping them through conversations and based the relationships that they have with trust has changed barriers and language, because they speak Spanglish, Japanglish, and everything in between. So, and also I have clients in New Zealand who are working with Colombians. So my whole life, the stereotypes are completely gone with this when you use neuroscience to create conversation. So it's a passion. I love it.
I love that you talked about the languages and different things like that. And in the midst of this pandemic, and when I hear conversational intelligence, I think about somebody needing to understand that I actually need to be quiet enough to hear what somebody's saying to me, so I can actually begin a two-way dialogue, so that I make sure I'm in the right conversation, and that we're having the same conversation. How important today is getting good at conversational intelligence? That's for any of you experts.
Gabriella, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Well, I think it's vital. having conversations. Now, conversations, the base of a conversation comes from trust. And it comes even before you start speaking, is at the moment of contact. We humans need to be connected. So what you said, Lawrence, at the beginning, this connection. And there's many studies that even if we're Zooming or using any Facebook or whatever, is we still feel our energy is felt and we connect. So yes, the most important thing is to build that trust and feel. I can feel, even if you wake up in the morning and you start your day by saying, "Oh, I'm late. I'm not gonna make it." Every conversation that you're having with yourself impacts the energy you're having impacts the next relationship. Even if you go for a coffee, wherever you go, if you're in a bad mood, that person might become in a bad mood because of interaction. So we call interaction dynamics that we have with people. So it's vital to have those conversations and learn how to change the neurochemistry for yourself and for the person that you have in front of you.
Well, I would say that I love what Gabriella said because it really is about the relationship. And so, how do you start relationships? When I think about them, I see it as three levels. There's build, maintain, and for goodness sake, I hope you don't have to get to the repair piece. But when you're building a relationship, it has to start somewhere. And generally, it starts with a line of communication, whether that's, verbal or physical, but it starts at some point. And so what's important to me when it comes to, I would say conversational intelligence, it's not having some great, grand, and glorious gift that nobody else has. It's something that really we all have. It's just a matter of technique and how you create that conversation and how you draft it in a way so that somebody can listen to you. And what I mean by drafting it in a way or creating the context is I call it conversational rituals. And so here's a ritual. You get up in the morning, and if you have a spouse, a significant other, you say good morning. And believe it or not, while it probably sounds really simple, that's a ritual. And the other thing I would say is, and this is something I got from my mom. My mom used to tell me, saying thank you makes room for more. Well, when I was a little person, I didn't know what that meant. But the night that my mother passed away, I had this vision, and she just simply came to me and she said, thank you. And it was, to me, it was a thank you for everything that we had done. Thank you for the relationship. Thank you for everything that had happened in my life. So I look at that as a conversational ritual, saying please and thank you. All of that, as Gabriella says, is creating a level of trust with the individuals that you're talking to. And believe it or not, and Gabriella, you can talk about this a little bit more. I can't say that I am this great scientist, but it changes the DNA in our brain. It's the amygdala that gets reacted, and it primes something that creates trust for all of us. And that amygdala, the front part of the brain, is where all of the memories are stored. And so, you can lay out a pattern, or a pattern can happen, whether it's a pattern to help you, to keep you from being hurt or harmed, or whether it's a pattern to say, Lawrence is my friend, we have relationship. I remember still meeting at Panera Bread, and we had this awesome conversation. And I thought, this is somebody that, there's now this memory in my head, and it just really changed the whole DNA for me. So it's not this, I think, this huge scientific thing that changes the whole body makeup. It really changes the way we think.
Yeah, I love that because I'm thinking, because you have a guru, right? You have all Phil, Gabriella, gurus, conversational intelligence, but the other guru that's in conscious leadership, Karen, what elements expose themselves as it pertains to conscious leadership and having conversational intelligence, and how do those end up supporting each other?
I think it's interesting that we talked first about self-talk, the conversations that we have with ourselves. And one of the tools that I've been using a lot more often now is Ho'oponopono. Does anybody else practice Ho'oponopono? Right? I love you. I'm sorry. I forgive you. Thank you. Yeah. And I think the self-talk is something that self-awareness, and all conscious leadership starts with that self-awareness. And when you can tune into the conversations that you have with yourself, you can understand better the relationship that you have with yourself. You can't expect to express to other people unconditional acceptance if you don't have that for yourself. So the program that I have for conscious leadership, the Corporate Consciousness Ripple Blueprint, starts with 6 weeks of focusing on yourself. And then you can start focusing on your team, and then you can start focusing on the organization itself. But everything starts with that self-awareness and being able to tune into those conversations that you have and really get in tune with your relationship. That requires a lot of reflection and time, and often help, assistance, because these things happen unconsciously, automatically, so that's also habit, right? So once you tune into that self-awareness, the conscious change takes time. It takes repeating these rituals, as Phil was saying, to repeat them and then get better in tune, and then you can accelerate the path from that self-awareness to being more conscious about the conversations that you have with other people.
Man, I dropping mics, and we're not even halfway through yet, Karen. Like, we gotta support it continuing on. But I want to know from Phil and Gabriella, what have been some of the things that you've been helping your clients navigate, particularly over the last several months? Because I have this theory, right? When social justice was really swinging in the summertime, everybody was posting stuff, everybody was aware and woke all of a sudden. But now that it's kind of not prevalent in the news anymore, it's not on the cycle and the reel. How much of an understanding around conversational intelligence to make sure you're still being, and somebody put inclusion in the chat, how much of that plays a role in just everyday conversations being successful? And I stacked that on you. I stacked several questions on you in comments, but how have you really been supporting your clients have these conversations well, whether it's social justice, whether it's conflict in the workplace and different things like that?
So I would share with everyone how I have approached those kind of conversations and how I've helped my clients better understand it. And I always tell them, be fast to listen and slow to speak. Because the thing about what we're dealing with from a racial standpoint is, people want to be heard. And it's so important as leaders to say this one simple term, I hear you. And when you say, I hear you, that tends to negate and take down what I call the armoring up when people approach you and they have these emotions and these issues that they're dealing with. So from that perspective, I tend to use, I guess maybe you want to say that it's like a humanist approach in coaching, in that it really comes down to helping someone be the best at who they can be. Because from that perspective, I would say to you, and everybody on the panel, and even those that are listening, when you can focus on your client, and I always find myself getting into a space where they get my undivided attention, because I need to be able to hear everything that they're saying, listen to their voice inflections, and then be able to build a conversation from there. So, how I help them, I think, is to navigate through those difficult times when, somebody from their team might be coming in their office and just absolutely distraught and feeling overwhelmed with the current events of the day, and how do you address that? And I think really the first thing is really to listen to them first, and then just be slow to speak. And so, I'll let Gabriella chime in on that, because I think the thing is just having a different approach. And for me, it's being able to tailor that depending on who I'm talking to. Because one of the things about conscious leadership is it's not about us. It's not about anybody that is on this panel. It's about the people that we are leading. And I heard an old minister say, if you are a leader and nobody's following you, then you're just taking a walk alone. And so I would just say, again, be fast to listen and slow to speak.
Gabriella, Phil had mentioned 3 different stages of relationships, and when we spoke, you talked about 3 different stages of conversation. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, definitely. So to go a little bit to what Karen said, some of what you feel said, and Lauren, some of the questions that you have. In conversational intelligence, what we have is you start with yourself. You go from I to we. And what happens is you start to understand your blind spots. We have blind spots. And one of the syndromes that we talk about, and I used to suffer that syndrome, is I was addicted to being right. I know what I know, and this is who I am, and this is how things are going to be. And the impact when your amygdala gets hijacked and you go back. So we have something called the dashboard, and it's how you elevate the trust in order to have conversations. So yes, you have to listen. Listen is the most important thing. But then inside that listening, you really need to be connecting. And we talk about the heart intelligence. You connect and you don't judge, which obviously human beings, we are judging all the time. And we have 3 levels of conversation. The first level of conversations right now, I'm telling you what I know and all that, and you're just listening to me, and yeah. But if, for example, we would get into an argument, we have level 2. Level 2 is you start telling me your stuff, I start listening, but then we fight and we don't get together, so I'm starting to protect, but at the same time, I'm trying to listen to you, but I'm still defending. And the level 3 is when we co-create. The word collaboration is when you fraternize with the enemy, so we like to use co-creation. And to get to the level 3, when you're able to understand who you are and how to have a conversation with the other person, how to connect, if those amygdalas get hijacked, how to change the biochemistry, how to, instead of releasing cortisol, you make that person connect with you. And again, oxytocin is in the brain, so things change, and elevate it to a conversation where we can create. So if you have these kind of conversations, you make people feel included, you make people appreciate it. And how I have applied this, my most beautiful example is the Japanese culture do not give good feedback or feed forward, if you want to call it. They just will tell you, when you work with the Japanese think you're great, but they want to make you greater. So feedback is, you're not doing this right, change it. Mexico is, you're doing great, come on, you need empowerment, you need to motivate them. If not, I don't feel good, you're not taking me into your you don't like me, right? So I had to teach them how to give feed forward, I call it, to the Mexicans. You have to appreciate what they're doing. And I had to teach the Mexicans, they're telling you you're already great, but you can be greater. So that was kind of things that we had to, that's what I do, right? To feel excluded, not included, appreciated, to expand, to share, and to make people understand that we're in this together, the I to we. I'm the I inside the we.
I love that you said that, Gabriella, particularly from a cross-cultural standpoint. And you brought it up from an international perspective, but who knows, within any organization, I could bring work hurt with me. And so I may have another language in my head from that previous environment. And now, we're talking about conversational intelligence. So I could be coming in with that version of the Mexico, the way that I receive, versus the Japanese. Like, no, you need this. This is the way that we get better. And it's always that good, better, best kind of mentality to say, hey, what are we going to do? And I love that Ginger Johnson's on. It's one of my rock star connectors who says, has a form of cooperation. And I love your co-create thing, because Ginger and everybody I've been in a relationship, Phil, during this season have been about all around co-creation and the empowerment that happens in co-creation. And that every time we communicate, I feel stronger. I feel better. I feel like I could run through anybody's wall, no matter what it's made out of, just because of who I'm co-creating with. And I believe, what do you all see this? How do you see this playing a role in the way we build resilience moving forward?
So I'll give you an example. I love what Gabriella said in reference to cultures. And I remember the first day I walked into the Maryland's office in Coral Gables, Florida, and coming from a small town, Lakeland, Florida, and then going to Coral Gables was this huge culture shock for me, because I wasn't accustomed to what felt like people were screaming at me. And I wasn't accustomed to this really charged kind of conversation. And I realized that where I came from was different than where I am. And I just had to take a deep breath and say, wow, this is very different for me, but at the same time, still using, I think, some of the rituals and understanding of just having some basic conversation. So it's really, I think, almost one of those things where you almost have to, if I can say it this way, you almost have to be extremely flexible and allow yourself to be vulnerable in a way that you can now really comprehend what somebody is trying to say and what someone's trying to convey to you. It really comes down to, I think, just being flexible. So I don't know, Gabriella, if you have anything to add to that.
Can I ask you, Phil, for a second? Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Yeah. What do you think comes first, the resilience or the flexibility?
I think they work very hand in hand. And here's what I mean by that. That experience in Coral Gables was allowing me to bend and to shape myself. And moving from Coral Gables to Seattle, now I have that resilience that I can go to a totally different culture and see some similarities and be able to survive, because that's really what the resilience is all about, is being able to get to the next step, because it's almost like building on what you learned, and that there's the foundation of what you got, the foundation of what I got from, Central Florida to South Florida, and then to go from Florida all the way to the Pacific Northwest. I mean, that's just a totally different culture. So I think the experience allows you to have flexibility, but the flexibility really helps you to be resilient along the way. I hope that makes sense.
Gabriella, what do you have to add to that?
Well, again, talking about the conversations, and when you have people talking or being aggressive or not even being emotionally intelligent to speak, what we will try to do is to get into understanding. So priming for trust in any conversation. So if you teach people to start building that trust, and we can move, because somebody can say something and make you angry or make you to resist an idea. But if you know how to move them with certain tools that we have, and one of the most important things I found in my life that worked for me to understand and clean the biases that I had about a culture or a behavior was to be curious. And to be curious and ask questions, obviously questions that you know how to formulate and do not hurt the person, do not create that cortisol that would make people aggressive. There's a beautiful tool, and we call it double click. And she called it double click because that's what we do now, right? Every time we don't know something, we just double click. So, for example, if you ask people right now, the five of us here and the people on the chat, what is resilience? We're going to give so many different answers to what resilience is. So understanding where the person is coming from and why you're saying this or what does this mean will create a conversation, and you will probably defend what you're talking about, and I will defend what I'm talking about. And there's a new concept, anti-fragility. I don't know if you've heard of it. The resilience and being anti-fragile. Resilient is I'm here, the winter comes, the tree is in the same place. But being anti-fragile is to create when there's chaos. Conversational intelligence is about creating when there are problems, when there are chaos. So for me right now, being able to use neuroscience to appease the person or to make little changes in how to create trust again is super important.
I love that because I'm a huge believer in being more curious than confrontational. And one of the things that I've learned, particularly in this season, there's a lot of anxiety around saying things perfectly. There's a lot of anxiety and kind of angst around, will I get it right? And some people like there's a book I love by John Maxwell, Failing Forward. Like just get it out. And I always call it, in the military, we used to call it a preparatory command. Before you say something that might be construed as crazy, say, hey, I don't know the proper way to get this out, but I need to get it out. So bear with me, right? That's the preparatory command. And then you got the other person on the other end is like, all right, what Lawrence about to say crazy. But you already know it's about to be crazy. So you already I'll put you in a good posture. I'm like, look, I already told you, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly. And one of the things for me in a vulnerability moment, and you talk about not just conversational intelligence, but the emotional intelligence, being self-aware how certain topics make us feel. And when you're talking with someone that you may not be fully versed in a topic, but saying that to them, particularly around one for me was understanding of pronouns. Here I am, this diversity, equity, inclusion guy. And what got me in the room was I'm the black guy. But now this introduction of pronouns as a thing. And particularly, and I'm huge on self-awareness, I'm huge on identity, I'm huge on self-management. And now when confronted by someone to say, hey, would you mind addressing people by their preferred pronouns? All that junk in my head of upbringing, of all this other stuff came up. I mean, I'm talking about T minus 2 seconds. And so it was not only am I about to be emotionally intelligent and understand something's happening with me, or am I just gonna and just spew all over this session? It was like, whatever, that's a thing for you, but it's not for me. So I'm gonna continue down this path. And so that's huge that you brought that up, Gabriella, because conversational intelligence, it's layers to this thing. It's not just, am I saying the right words? It's that, am I being thoughtful? Am I communicating with empathy, which is not sympathy? So learn the difference. And in that and you, Phil, Karen, and Gabriella, you've all said it. Do I see you? And I love Brene Brown. Do I see you? Do I hear you? Do I value and appreciate the person that's in front of me? And I really, truly believe that's the secret sauce as we move forward. And so when you think about giving somebody, you say, you know what, if you work on these couple things, and I know y'all have given some tips and tricks, but what's the thing that you said, if you're having difficulty, somebody's at level one, what would you begin to tell them to work on to get good or start moving down the road to at least grow some maturity in this?
When you are we saying the different levels in
conversational intelligence? Like,
okay,
yeah.
Well, I think Lawrence, where I would tell where someone begins, and I think it's going to be different for everyone. I think where I would tell someone to begin is, again, I think I said it earlier, is to listen first and hear what someone is saying, because I'm a firm believer, and I heard this somewhere, that help is the sunny side of control. And you're not trying to control someone or control their life, but you're trying to help them in this selfless kind of way so that they could be better. So I think when I think about conversational intelligence and trying to help someone along, is you gotta listen, because how do you know how to respond without listening first? And to me, that's just first and foremost. Um, and when you can do that, then I think you can proceed down a path. And whether I think, as Gabriella said, listening to protect, or listening, to have a better understanding, then I think you can proceed to the next level. But I think it's really important to just, again, listen fast and speak slow.
Gabrielle, I wanted to ask you while we have a little bit of time here. Now, I was a communications major in school, and that was in the last millennium. Um, there wasn't a phrase for conversational intelligence, but we did learn interpersonal communications, and we did learn reflective listening and skills around that. Can you share what the certification for conversational intelligence required? What between the level that most conscious leadership coaches operate at and their understanding of it, and some of the gaps that certification filled?
Um, Well, the first going back to what to do and how to help people. Lawrence, Phil, what you said, it's perfect. The only thing I would put behind the listening is, no matter who you have in front of you, it's another human being. And humanizing right now, I think, is the most important thing. You have a human being, color, race, sex, religion, it doesn't matter. You have another human, vulnerable person in front of you. And another little thing is, words create worlds. So one word can create something very special or something really, really hard to forget. That's the only thing. The connect with the person and connect with your heart, for me, it's the first step, and listen and understanding. And now for Karen. I didn't study communications. I am an engineer, and when I started to learn about listening and how to communicate, it was about how to listen. But nobody told me that I had blind spots and that syndrome. And sometimes people that are the perfect professional sellers, they have the push and the pull, and how they make you sometimes feel less and feel that. I didn't understand what the neuroscience behind a word can have. Some, like you're talking about rituals, there are patterns in our brains. So if you go back to how your parents treated you and what kinds of words they used, and then you're confronted with those words. So to understand biochemically and physically what a language can do, for me, was brutal. It opened a whole new world to communication, to languages, to behavior, to being human. Because I think all the sensitivity and all the training and all the biases is that lack of humanity. And we're going through this right now where we need to be human. For me, it's what made me love what Judith did with conversational intelligence. And that's it. That's what I can tell you.
I love all that. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you, Gabriella. Lawrence, I don't know what time you got to get off, but I want to give everybody just a chance to say where we can find you. Who are the people that you want to help right now, and where do you recommend that they find you?
I would recommend that folks find me on LinkedIn. And I don't know, Lawrence, if you have the ability to put my LinkedIn link into, great. So here's what I want to say about that, though. What's really important is, if you're connecting with people, tell them why. Don't just send them a blank invitation. I'm at the point now when I get LinkedIn invitations, I ask them, so why do you want to connect? Because I think that's important for you to know. And it helps, as Gabriella said, we're talking about humans, human beings, be able to have a conversation with them. So that's where you can find me. And as far as who, I'm here to help anybody. What I realize is this is not about me. This is about people that need help, and I'm willing to offer that.
Excellent. Thank you. Gabriella?
I agree with Phil. I like LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. You have my website. You can give my email. I love having conversations, but I also know how to screen my LinkedIn. If the person didn't look at my profile, unless I have a pretty good interest in that person, I will accept them. Otherwise, I don't. If you don't have the time to see who I am, we're not connecting, buddy. So no. And I invite everyone if they want to have a conversation. I think right now, even having conversations liberates a lot of our cortisol. Our two brains are fighting right now. We're uncertain about everything. Maybe we will go in lockdown again. So at least reaching out to another human being to talk about whether anything, I'm open. I love coffee and good conversation.
Well, thank you for accepting my LinkedIn invitation and having
No,
a
thank
conversation
you.
today and being part of this conversation today. Lawrence, I'll let you close it out.
No, how can people connect with you, Karen?
All right. I'm also on LinkedIn, obviously. I would love to talk more, but I could talk all day about conscious leadership. But more than anything, I want to grow this community. I want more conscious leaders to be co-creating a better world. So join the C3 community. We will make sure that Lawrence can post a link to that community. And please join us in co-creating a better world through conscious leadership.
Thank you so much, Karen. So everyone, thank y'all for showing up for the live today. This is the first. We're trying out a different platform. Thank you, panelists, Phil, Gabriella, for not only enlightening us and inspiring us, but being impactful with what you bring to the world, your secret sauce that makes your communities better and healthy and growing. And so my stuff is scrolling across. I'm on Facebook, IG, Twitter, all that good stuff. And I am huge on connecting, not just networking. I'm all about relationship building because, again, I not only want to impart things to your community, but I'm looking to raise my lid as well. And so I want to be surrounded by people who are givers, receivers, and they just love healthy connections and relationships. So until next time, folks, please, please, please join the C3 community because Karen drops golden nuggets all week long, all day, every day. So you will not go without being a part of this community. So thank y'all so much. We will see you all next time. Panelists, stay on so we can debrief.